Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Come on, telling boo. Come on, say ba. Umbarako. I'm not going to try to, I'll not try to delve into any other languages except the one that I speak. I've looked at a lot of my videos and I do videos, and I check it, and, I always go back to see how my video looks, vanity, of course. And I see the type of things that I talk about. But I want to talk about something that right now that's even far beyond myself. Okay, my favorite subject, and I'm not a minister, no, a pope or imam. I'm just a plain old Joe Blow like you. I want to talk about God. I want to talk about God. I I watched it. I'm constantly watching the things in the world, and you have your computer and you switch here and you switch there, and you get a conversation here, and then you get another conversation there. We live in the world that we live in today is quite dynamic. But before I go with my oratory, before I proceed with my oratory, I just want to make some reflections. And these reflections are based on my surfing the internet, seeing things that are happening in the world, what people are saying, how people exist in this world, what people do, what goes through the minds of men in certain situations. I remember when I was surfing on the internet, I came across a veteran, a United States veteran, who's old man, much older than me. I think he was close to 100 years old because he fought in World War II, and he's still alive, and he was talking. And I'm going to show that something common that I hear from many people when I search the internet. And you at the end of this discussion, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, this army vet, he was talking about when he was talking about World War II. I think they call it the Normandy invasion. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. The Normandy invasion, when the U.S. forces invaded Europe, and it was through Normandy, and I think that's through the country. I think that was in France. I think, and this were this were thousands of soldiers, thousands, hundreds of thousands of soldiers who uh, invaded Normandy in World War II. And this old man, the vet that I was listening to, I think he must have been maybe he may have even been 100 years old, but he was a very old man. I'm sure, he was probably 101 years. I think he was 100 years old, the vet. And okay, he was recalling the moments when he, as a soldier, was running and going to the enemy. And the thing about it is that to us, it's like a miracle, but it's not necessarily a miracle. It's just, I would call it just destiny. So he and his comrades had gotten, began their raid on their foot, on their feet. They were getting off the ship and running ashore, and they were running towards the enemy. And he was seeing men fall by gun firepower. Men were falling around everywhere, dying, shot in the head, heads blown off. Uh, Big bombs shooting, killing men falling on the ground to their death. Men losing their appendages, and he was going forward, and all these men, he saw death next to him, death in front of him, death behind him, but he kept going. He kept going. He made it. He's 100. He made it to be 100 years old. He was not even wounded. Men were dying all around, falling to the ground, losing their heads shot off. And this vet who lives today, he said men were falling left and right, in it forward and backwards, heads blown off. And he came out of that type of situation. And he was not even wounded. Yes, he killed. Yeah, he was a soldier. He killed a lot of men. But through all of that, he's 100 years old. He walked away, and death was in front of him. Death was behind him. Death was everywhere that he could see. And so he was being the vet that I'm talking about. He was being interviewed. And so the interviewer, he asked the vet, he said, well, why were you able to go through war and walk away? And you know what that old man said? Do you know what that old man said? He said he was praying to God all the time. Now, I do a lot of surfing on the internet, and you go into discussion. You have these interviews, and they go into discussions with people. Here's a woman, and she's her daughter is being raped, or her mother is being raped, and then the interviewer said, "What?" She said, and the other one said, "I was praying." Now, I know in the Islamic religion, protocol, protocol, protocol is you should pray 5 times a day. I mean, you spend most of your time praying while you're on this earth. So I think that prayer, meditation, has a lot to do with whether we survive or whether we do not survive. But the subject that I want to talk about, it has a little to do with prayer, but it has more to do with God. I'm not a minister. I'm not a minister. I am not a preacher. I'm just a man. And I know that I have been praying all my life. I guess that was a blessing that was bestowed upon me by the woman who carried me in her womb. Because prayer has always been an aspect of my existence. Of course, of course, like any other human being, I have had my challenges, failures, heartbreaks, pains, but I seriously believe that prayer is more powerful than a bullet or a gun or a sword. Yes, one must defend himself. But I think prayer is something like like when you eat food, there's certain kind of food you should eat. If you eat these certain types of food, these food help you to grow. They give you good health. Some food, it makes you strong. Some food kills the bacteria that enters the body. So, we are what we eat. We eat in the right things, and we live. We live. Our bodies are in good shape, and we're able to do this or do that because of what we eat, the food that we eat. But food is more than there's a saying, food for thought. Food is more than that physical thing that we put into our mouths. But I'm not. I, I, it's, I am not. My motive is to not talk about food or even prayer. But that's just my preliminary. That's just my introduction to talk about God. Okay, this is a scary discussion, and I will proceed, and you'll see why. This is a very scary discussion. Okay, God, I'm sure if you have been following me, if you have been following me since I installed my YouTube station, and it's only been about a couple of years, you may have heard this discussion before. But let me run it on you again. Okay, God is the creator of everything, right? Okay, everything that we know of, everything that exists, anything that we can imagine, He is the most powerful, and all of that He created. Okay, if we go out into space, we go and find many, many universes, many, many planets. We have gigantic planets, like the planet Jupiter. That planet is so great that many Earths can fit into Jupiter. And even though we don't know the life form on Jupiter, because none of us have ever been there, and none of us will ever be there. But we speculate because God gives us that sense of speculation. But we speculate things about what's on that planet Jupiter. But if Jupiter is a giant planet, my imagination says to me that Jupiter, that giants exist on Jupiter in life form. I'm sure out there, way up there in outer space, I'm sure there are planets where you have men who are 100 times bigger than myself, or you, or any of us. I'm saying that anything that we can imagine probably exists. It may not exist where we are, but it exists. The fact that this thing becomes an aspect of our minds, to me, that's an indication that whatever is an aspect of our mind is an aspect of reality, and may that reality will and may not be a reality that we know. But then that's where we go into the idea of imagination that goes beyond our own reality. I guess the most brilliant man of our century, of our age, was Albert Einstein. He talked, he talked about the imagination The imagination can go anywhere. What happens in our mind, what we can think anything. But my position is that if we think it, it exists. So how am I talking about God? And that's what I'm talking about. God. God creates everything. He creates the now, the never, the before, and the after. Think of it, perceive it. God made it. So let's talk about time. God created time. God created the future. God created the past. Let's go back to the future. Even before we think it, God has already created it. Even as we imagine it to be, it is being because God made it to be. But let's talk about time. I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say since. Since God is the creator of everything, and since God creates the future, what does that say? What does that say about the destiny of each of us? Simply, our destiny, our destiny is has been already created. So as we walk into our destiny, as we go forward in our destiny, destiny was there waiting for us. Destiny waits for us. Okay, if destiny awaits for us, what about the present? And what about the past? Doesn't God know what I will do in the next minute? Doesn't God know what I have done? Doesn't God know the future? So God already knows what each and every one of us is going to do. Didn't He make the future? If He made everything, did He not design the future? Didn't He know that when I walked across that street and He knew that I would take a left here? He knew that. Didn't God make everything? Look, I'm saying yes. But let's deal with the human. Let's deal with the human mind. Look, I submit, totally submit. But let's think about it for a minute. That child who has been raped, scorched, burnt, that man who has been beat to death, that child who has been eaten by a dog, that suffering that 1 million people are going through, didn't God create everything? Didn't God create everything? Didn't He create the future? Didn't He create pain and suffering? Didn't He create hatred? What is it that God did not create? Pain, suffering. What is it that God didn't do? Do you see what I'm talking about? Can you see what I'm talking about? God created the devil. So, what is this all about? What is this all about? Will you please tell me? But I surrendered. I surrendered. I surrendered totally to Almighty God. Totally. 100%. He created the pain that awaits me, the suffering that awaits me. But I submit to the Almighty God. So my recommendation is that you should submit.